Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Experience Kills. I'm once again joined by the beloved Benjamin Hall. Say hello, Benjamin.
Hello, Cameron. How you doing, mate?
I'm sorry I cut you off while you were saying hello to tell you to say hello.
That's because we're this well-oiled professional machine. That's how we roll.
You know, we've been going for a good couple of years now. I'd like to think there's some actual real professionalism in the podcast by now, you know, but I'll take it.
I like that, just making the edit challenging for yourself by shouting as loud as possible. That's...
Oh no, I'm gonna leave that in.
So I guess I should do the thing. What are we here to talk about?
Oh, okay, let's go with that. Okay. Today we are bringing you a sweet little review of Breach. Now, this is brought to us by QC Games, and it is an early access, and it is a nice big third-person action RPG, kind of at the moment more dungeon crawly by the feel of it. It kind of has an air of like Dragon Age Inquisition for their dungeon runs, if you remember those, Ben.
Well, that would make sense considering the team is made up of ex-Bioware developers from Austin, Texas.
Well, you didn't have to go and embarrass me like that. But
See, I did my research too.
Oh, fine, be like that. So it's got that playthrough, and which I did love doing. I did that a lot with my friends. So
yeah.
It had quite a nice instant draw for me. And yet at the same time, it kind of had a slight feel of kind of Left 4 Dead for their verses, because while I should explain the main core idea of the game is that thousands and thousands of years ago, the reality was split in two, one being our world and the one being kind of the world of magic. Or, well, let's call it magic. So, at this point now, the kind of thin veil between worlds is breaking, and so demons are now invading, and the whole world is going to pot, and you, along with other multiplayer people, play as special mages that go along to fight the incursion, to save the world. So, yeah, that's the main gist of the game. And so when it came to kind of Left 4 Dead, is that you are basically dungeon crawling with up to 4 people, and you also have you can play versus mode against an actual person online who will take control of an enemy demon in the game, similar to how the zombies would be a special zombie, who can then possess creatures in the game to kind of be stronger than a regular grunt that can help destroy you guys. Summon more ferocious creatures, set traps for you along the way as well. But you can't physically actually destroy them because they are kind of in that limbo between worlds. So it's really interesting.
So it's asymmetrical multiplayer in the idea, which was a thing that was really popular for about 5 minutes a few years back. Evolve comes to mind. Did you ever play Evolve? Which was that first-person sci-fi shooter against like 4 guys teaming up against a big creature, basically. Did you ever play that?
I don't think I did, actually.
So that was made by Turtle Rock, which I believe was the actual guys that did make Left 4 Dead. So I mean, yeah, the idea of this asymmetrical multiplayer, it was popular, but it kind of died off with Evolve because that bombed harder than a £1,000 munition landing on your head during World War II. So I mean. This is kind of interesting that they're trying to bring it back here with Breach, and it's the ex-Dragon Age guys doing it. So it's third person.
Yeah, third person action.
And you're all mages.
Yes, but not necessarily of the mage that you might be thinking of, like from Lord of the Rings perspective. There's
like a cyberpunk thing going on as well.
There is, yeah, exactly. You can create your own character, so you can customize the way they look and the kind of clothes you go for. I kind of went for Demon Hunter Extraordinaire, Dante himself and Devil May Cry kind of look, because that's the kind of little nerd I am. But you've got guys that range from having heavy weaponry, as in like big fat swords, to guys who are just magic, to like demon hunters of a modern age that use like shotguns and like mechanical traps to fight the end. Yeah, so it's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, in my research for this, looking into it and delving into it, the one thing that kind of came across to me was the art style had that strangely non-specific kind of generic look to it. Is that fair? I mean, would you agree? It feels like it's been inspired by something like Overwatch, and it's been inspired with, that the current look of like a cartoony but sort of quite simplified looking character models and environments to try and make it as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. I mean, is that a fair assessment? I mean, how did you feel about how it looked in playing it?
Yeah, I can agree with that. It's not quite as cartoony as something like Fortnite might be, but definitely kind of, accessible is definitely the word I'd use. I mean, there is some really nice detail in some of the monsters that are out there. Some of the big bosses have little quirks about the character itself, the way it looks, which is kind of far from generic sometimes. But yeah, I definitely agree with your kind of summary there, at least.
Yeah, it's got this problem at the minute where I find some art styles in games aren't afraid to take, or are afraid, I should say, to take chances. So they end up coming with this. It almost feels like art design by committee, and like all the rough edges are shaved away until you have this almost homogeneous kind of blandness. But it's plenty nice enough to look at. There's obviously a lot of color involved, and it's got that cyberpunk kind of cross with fantasy aesthetic, which in no way means sort of like a bad thing. It just didn't grab me. But I suppose that's a minor thing. What we really should be asking, and what I'm going to ask you right now, is how does the balance feel? Because in an asymmetrical multiplayer game, if it feels like one side is, has an unfair advantage, it kind of ruins the entire experience.
No, that's a very good question, isn't it?
Asking the tough questions today.
Why do you have to do this to me, honestly?
I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious.
I've managed to play on both sides of the game so far. So I've managed to play as a hunter in a group of 4, and I've managed to play as a demon against other people online. And I've also tried the solo as well. I personally found the solo to be a bit, I don't want to say difficult because I'm not a noob, but not going to blame the game for my faults, but the AI I don't think is quite as polished as it should be for a lot of the AI, the end bosses and stuff like that. Like 2 people got shot down very early on in the final boss, and the other AI wouldn't make even a peep about trying to actually get them revived back in the game, where I'd have to go and take it, and at which point then he wasn't even covering me or drawing fire, so I ended up getting destroyed trying to save those people. And playing as the demon against actual people online, I think it balances quite nicely, because you're not being overpowered by the amount of creatures that are on screen at the time. You're not being the demon doesn't seem to be overpowered either. There are some nice traps you can lay there that aren't going to completely decimate the team in one strike, but there's enough on them to keep them on their toes. They could just finish a level, or I should say a mission in a certain area, and then just summon an elite demon that they'll just take them by surprise while they're healing up and preparing for the next part.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense what you're telling me, because obviously there was the multiplayer developers working on Dragon Age Inquisition, and they've come and made this studio, which is making Breach, which obviously means that they're going to play to their strengths, which is multiplayer design. So therefore, when you talk about the single player feeling maybe not as well balanced and maybe a bit unfair in places, it's probably because that's not their strength in developing, and therefore they're playing to their strengths by developing a multiplayer experience. So I guess you can't really fault them for that, because I think they probably looked at Evolve, for example, which didn't have any kind of single player, if I remember rightly, and how that was considered a detriment to the whole package, and therefore they felt the need to include it, even if it isn't as fulfilling an experience as the multiplayer. Which is a shame in a way, because that costs development resources, making a single player, and if it isn't worth playing, then those resources could have been spent somewhere else. Be it time, money, or development skills. That's a little bit unfortunate, I think, perhaps, and especially if it's a mode that maybe isn't going to be played by really anyone. So I mean, is it a game that sort of sinks its hooks into you? Do you feel, because multiplayer now, it's all about retaining those players. And is the game's fully released? Is it early access? I can't remember.
It's still in early access. They've got a really nice idea, like a roadmap of where they want to be at the end of the towards the end of this year. So they've got specific phases in place, ready to bring in new maps, new demons, new enemies, those sort of things. So they are definitely they're definitely paying attention to everything so far, like I've seen.
They're taking on board feedback and stuff.
Exactly,
and they're active in the community, that sort of thing.
Exactly, yeah. And there's
good.
a couple of things that are a little bit off-putting for myself personally. I had to spend quite a long while playing missions and things to earn any kind of in-game currency to then purchase in-game more of the hero classes. So they're not already ready to choose, and you can choose absolutely whatever you want to play as. You get the very basic pack to start with, and they do sell like hero packs and demon packs, like, so you can buy the heroes early.
So you beat me to it. I was going to ask you, is it MTX up the wazoo? So yeah, there is a lot of microtransactions then with it.
There are some in there currently.
Okay.
But the in-game style, like, it is very, very, very slow to grind. Because you can make, I don't know, even with like kind of double gold, which you can get with certain buffs, you can make 2 to 3 ish like gold an hour, and like the expensive heroes are like nearly 10,000 gold.
That's ridiculous. Okay, so this is early. As you said, this is early access and it's microtransactions.
Yes. So,
look, I just don't like that. I have a problem with that.
I know. I mean, I've had major problems with it ever since they tried to, They tried to make you try and earn Darth Vader in Battlefront 2, like for a really long time. It took you like 80 hours to play, sort of thing,
But that was a full released game. That wasn't an early access game.
So hence why it peeves me off even more that it's still early on,
and it's not microtransactions just for cosmetics a la PUBG or something. It's actually for heroes, which and new classes and stuff and new characters which will affect gameplay. So the fact that that's gated behind it, because what you're doing by buying a game in early access is you're supporting the development. You're investing in the idea that developers have approached you with. So I find it a little bit strange that you're already making that investment and then they're asking for you to make a further investment. As a gamer, I struggle with that a little bit. I guess the question is the game in your mind that good, so good that it's like, okay, fair cop, there's a lot of skill, there's a lot on offer here, it's polished, it's a good experience and therefore justifies these costs? Or are you not so sure?
Personally, not so sure just yet. I mean, because like I said, it's still in early access, and I like that they are taking into effect a lot of the feedback they're receiving from the community, and obviously they've got a great map of what they're going to be bringing out soon. So I just want a bit more polish and a little bit more polish in the combat. I want a little bit more polish when it comes to the whole, whether or not they can reduce the cost of some of the extra heroes and stuff, so you can get a really good game time with all of the characters before suddenly you think, alright, I need to spend 20 quid here. I need some of that before I can start going, yes, Breach, fantastic, 5 out of 5. Yes.
It sounds like a wait and see kind of thing where, they've got their roadmap, they've made these promises, there's a good foundation here, but maybe just hold off, see how it comes along before maybe investing in the game. Yeah,
because as far as it goes right now, all I can see is PvP and PvE. There's no real story development within the game, but that is one of the things they will be introducing in the coming months. So once they've kind of updated some of those things, you know what? I'm gonna come back and I'll give it another go.
Yeah, because it sounds like a game that has a rich and interesting, potentially very interesting world. There's magic split thing or the cyberpunk thing, so it sounds like it would be ripe for storytelling.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't it be? I mean, I don't know about you, but a lot of the TV shows that I watch that have demons in it, I like to pump it full of lead sometimes. Just pop a quick shotgun into the face, and it's something that everyone deserves to have once in their life.
Yeah, I'm just on the Steam page right now, looking at like the smorgasbord of choices regarding how you could buy this game. It's somewhat confusing, to say the least.
Play how you want, master it, discover new ways to play with purchases.
Yeah, all of it. I was wondering. I checked because I wanted to check because I didn't want to do this service in case there was a base option that was free, and I can't see one. So I think the cheapest version is 20 quid, basically.
I think it's, the general starter pack, yeah. But if you want to get, the supporter bundle, which has absolutely everything, and you guys are really happy to, help with the development, as it was, you've got yourself a spare rate at £79 in your pocket. Go for it.
Yeah. Okay.
But I won't be making that purchase.
Yeah, I don't think it sounds bad, but it just sounds like something that's worth waiting on and seeing what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's wait on the sea on Breach. Sounds pretty cool, but let's just hang out. So yeah, that was a good video, Cameron. I enjoyed talking to you there about Breach. It was a very honest and frank discussion. Where can we go to find more honest and frank discussions about video games? And if you say IGN, I'll kill you.
Kotaku? Well, you can follow us on YouTube at Experience Kills and also on Twitter at Experience Kills. You can follow Ben at DIYE or Die as it is read. But I'm not allowed.
You could pronounce it that way, I suppose.
He hates me though. Die. Oh. It's one of the weirder names on Twitter. But
thanks.
Unfortunately, my Twitter feed is filled with too much rubbish. I don't think I will be advertising it on this.
That's okay.
Podcast.
That's okay.
And you can also, what I post.
I will point out, it's important to mention that if you don't have time to maybe sit in front of YouTube and watch 15 or 20 minutes video of us chatting about particular games, you can also subscribe to these in audio format on iTunes. We're also on Spotify. We have a raw RSS feed if you don't like using those services. So we're basically trying to make this stuff as conveniently available to you as is humanly possible.
It was, and it's great. You know what? I'll tell you what. I actually listened to the first podcast we did, you and Rich did the other day while I was at the gym, and I got to say that I really enjoyed that podcast, that first one. So
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Hopefully get you on the next one with a little bit of luck. But I think
Are you sure that you want me live?
I think it's worth taking the risk.
It's on your head, buddy. On your head.
So that was Breach, and I've been Ben.
I've been Cameron.
Bye.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.